I wonder if I swing it like this. Nah, too overextended. What if I...
Huh. I could have sworn that this pipe would take me home to my aunt. Oh, hey. Wait a minute. Thinkafurr, what are you doing here?
Oh, hey, Wily. I'm trying to figure out how Link does the...
Didn't we already do that in our last video?
Yeah, kinda. We covered how Link fights, with his shield and sword, but in that video, there was something we also mentioned, which was, the Master Sword isn't a short sword, but a hand-and-a-half sword, allowing for two-handed techniques. And so, here I am, trying to figure out just how good is Link's longsword fighting.
Yeah. I guess we didn't cover the moves Link can do with two hands. So, which longsword, or rather, which Link were you thinking?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of different longswords across the Zelda franchise, wielded by various different heroes. To narrow things down and keep it simple, I've been focusing my attention mainly on one Link in particular. The hero of time, wielding the beastly Biggoron sword. Now, this sword wielded by Link is absolutely monstrous and imposing in appearance. But just what kind of sword is it?
Well, starting with the basics. The big Goron sword is a two-handed type sword, also known as a longsword. There are various classifications of longsword over history, such as a Zweihande, which literally translates to two-handed in German. Often the term greatsword is thrown around. Either way, longswords are the name of the game here. Now, from a historical point, the big Goron sword is extremely similar to the longswords of Europe seen in the early 15th century. In particular, it shows great resemblance in design to a historical sword found from the Arsenal of Alexandria, as well as striking similarities in size to the German Zweihande. These kinds of longswords were longer and surprisingly light, designed specifically for the purpose of fighting against opponents wearing armor. The main point of this sword was to stab through the gaps in the armor, as well as breaking it with half-swording, also known as the murder stroke. A crazy type of attack where you grip the blade with your bare hands, using it like some sort of hammer.
Now, remembering how in our last video we touched upon tapering. Well, looking at the overall blade profile on the Biggoron sword, it has a huge amount of edge tapering, as well as a tiny amount of distal tapering on the point as well. Also, its pommel is fairly large, acting as a reasonably decent counterweight. It's entirely possible that the Biggoron sword has a decent weighting based on these observations of its overall design, thus in turn making for a fairly agile blade design. You see, the thing is, it's actually a fairly common misunderstanding that long swords are heavy and slow weapons, when quite the opposite is true. Often, longswords had massive blades and could be wielded with great agility. Just drawing from Skallagrim once more, as he's a brilliant example. As we see demonstrated, it is quite clear how quickly a longsword can change direction. Link to Skallagrim's channel once again in the top right corner.
You know, interestingly, if you compare how Link moves, he swings the big Goron sword around very quickly, and is able to change direction fairly fast. Honestly, there's not much to fault about Nintendo's portrayal of longsword's weight and speed here. But, while we're on the subject of accurate portrayal, just how does Link's technique measure up?
Well, before I begin, let's set a few rules for measuring what makes a good attack, as that measurement can be done in all kinds of ways, and can be affected by many variables, such as speed and damage, which are obvious factors to consider. However, from a practical and technical standpoint, we will measure the overall finesse of Link's longsword attacks based on 3 clear measurements. The first measurement being the conservation of energy, which is all about how much energy an attack consumes when performed. If you waste too much energy in any kind of fight, you can end up losing because the opponent overran you whilst you were tired out due to poor form. Next is safety, as in how safe it is to perform. Now, I feel like this one is fairly obvious, but essentially, this is a measurement of risk versus reward. If your attack leaves you completely open to counters with no defenses at all, and the potential to land this attack successfully is too low, then this move isn't all that practical. As for the third and final measurement, it is recovery time. This refers to how quickly one can reset their guard or stance after attacking or to transition to another movement such as defending or making another attack. Now that we've established some ground rules, let's have a closer look at how the legendary hero of time moves and see if he measures up. To begin with, I actually have a lot of good things to say about Link's form overall. There is some glaring weak points, however, I want to cover his strong points first. So, moving forward, let's take a look at Link's battle stance. Interestingly, Link has a very legitimate longsword stance, which is safe to say a direct portrayal of Fiore's longsword stance, posta brevi, also known as the short guard. Now, when observing Link's attacks as carried out from this stance, we see Link loads his attacks from the back shoulder usually. Furthermore, he presents the blade first instead of his hands, meaning they are less likely to be cut off mid-attack. Now, moving on to more offensive topics, with moves like the thrust, he makes the absolute best use of his reach and is the easiest move to recover from and follow up with another attack. In conjunction to this, the move is historically one of the easiest attacks to perform and achieve a lethal result. So with that said, what's the score on this one, Wily?
I'm pretty sure that's a solid 3 for 3. We have conservation of energy, relative safety, and decent recovery time. Huh! Nintendo actually got it right this time. Not bad at all. But I'm a little curious about his other attacks, like the downcut. Let's take a look at it, shall we? So taking a closer look at his downcut, we can see it's loaded from the back shoulder. If you look at his back leg, he steps backwards and drops his body weight into the swing as well. This generates force with his body weight being shifted, and not just his arms. So that's 1 point for conservation of energy. As for safety, well, okay, so when swinging he always keeps the blade presented and doesn't leave his hands out, meaning he's far less likely to get those precious little fingies of his cut off. But the main letdown is how slow Link is when loading up this attack. During the initial moment Link raises his sword, his body is still open to attacks, even with good form. So this move gets half a point for safety. What is both as interesting as it is redeeming is the fact that despite the slow load up, once the attack is performed, Link's recovery time is just as quickly as a thrust, meaning he can still follow up with other moves or defend himself. I'd rate it a solid 2 out of 3, as its main danger is the beginning phase of the attack. But what do you think of Link's side cuts, Thinkafurr?
Well, having a closer look at this side cut, it's a fair amount slower than his thrust or downcut. Also, he spends a lot more time resetting his stance. So that's already 2 points, completely gone. However, it would deal a lot of damage if it lands.
But Thinkafurr, what about the risk-benefit ratio? You haven't looked at how safe it is to perform.
Ah, hold up. I'm getting there. Now, whilst having low recovery time and slower attack speed can leave Link open to an attack, this is only true in the event he overcommits too much or doesn't follow up with an immediate attack shortly afterwards, like a thrust. Now, whilst this point of view is from an in-game standpoint, this can be applicable even in real-world circumstances, as there is no rules against these moves being performed in combination of one another. Notice that if you perform a thrust straight afterwards, Link actually resets with the same speed as the thrust.
Well, yeah, actually that's kind of true. I guess this move gets a full point for safety then. Meaning it's at least practical and powerful despite how slow it is. So hey, now that we've gone through all the moves, how would you rate Link?
To be honest, I really want to give Link a solid 3 for 3 here, but sadly, we only covered the good things about Link's longsword moves. There are some weak points we do need to cover. Remember?
Oh, right. Well, let's dive into it, shall we? So first off, we have Link's jump attack. It's a strong and powerful downcut, but terribly slow and extremely telegraphed. Its recovery time is also really long compared to other moves. As you can see, Link even takes his time rotating to face the Gerudo Thief here, who lands consecutive hits quite easily if you jump attack her. Also, the most glaring and terrible part is that this move is seriously unsafe. It leaves you completely open to attack. Oh, that's not good for my voice. Safe to say, this move scores a solid 0 out of 3. But Wily, what about his spin attack?
Did you say spin attack?
Maybe let me handle this one. Alright, so the spin attack. This move is extremely powerful and has a massive radius of attack, allowing you to spread the damage, so it gets a point for damage. But from a practical standpoint, it's actually terribly dangerous. Why? Because it leaves you extremely defenseless for 3 reasons. Firstly, it's so easily telegraphed, making it easy to predict. Secondly, you leave your back to the opponent, meaning you actually can't see what your opponent is doing, which is really bad if your move is extremely overcommitted. And this move is completely overcommitted. To illustrate this point, just look at the Gerudo Thieves. They load up the spin attack, and when they attempt it, Link can easily counter this move with a thrust, and the Gerudo Thief quite literally jumps into the thrust. This move has way too much momentum and blind spots, which makes it terribly unsafe to perform and extremely taxing on your energy mid-fight. So, in summation, the spin attack, whilst its damage output is extremely tempting, its risks will often outweigh the benefits you could be reaping from something as simple as a poke with Link's metal stick.
So I guess, weighing things in, Link, the hero of time, has 3 out of 5 moves that are fairly decent to perform, which honestly isn't such a bad score at all.
Yeah. Surprisingly, Link's pretty decent with that longsword of his. You could say it measures up fairly well, even.
Well, you know what they say. It's how you use it that matters, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, pretty much. Well guys, looks like Link's not half bad at swinging that longsword of his around, but what do you all think? Let us know in the comments below.
If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to both of our channels. Also, don't forget, we have another video where we cover the origin of the big Goron sword over on my channel, so go check it out.
Oh hey, almost forgot, but thinkers, we have more epic shirt designs out. Go check out these badass shirts we made of Link. If you want one, all you gotta do is head over to the online store on teespring.com to get one. A link to the online store will be in the description below. Also, if you want to check out my channel artist's work over on Instagram, go check out ElfspringArt. Links to their page also in the description. With that all said, thanks so much for watching everyone, and thank you Wily for another fab collab. So, hey, now that we figured out how good Link's longsword is, what was it you were trying to find again before all of this?
Oh. Ah. Wait! Oh my god, my onion patch! Not like this!
Psst, Wily, we're in the out screen. Say bye.
Oh yeah! Bye everybody! Wahee!